Empower You podcast is devoted to bringing real-world wisdom and encouragement to our listeners. We discuss a multitude of life principles and the process from an economic, cultural, and societal perspective. We believe that through tough conversations and shared wisdom, we can pave the path and leave a ladder for the future. Subscribe to our channel and let us empower you. Welcome back to Empower You podcast. My name is Kidboy Cooper and I am your host. Thank you so much for being here. This is season 2 of our Empower You podcast. Season 1 wrapped about earlier this week, really. So now we're on to the second season of Empower You podcast. And in this season, we're going to be discussing topics that pertain to building successful habits. When you think about success and growth, it really boils down to the habits that you have on a daily basis, the things that you do every day that create reality around you that reflects your values. And so in order to get there, we have to evaluate our current habits. And that is what we're going to be talking about today. The topic of today's podcast is evaluating our habits. And our guest is Brianne Ellis. I'll let you introduce yourself. Brianne, how you doing?
I am well. I'm Brianne. I am a spiritual advisor. I am a minister ordained through the University of Metaphysics. And I'm a regular girl who went through a journey. My journey started with myself. I was a Pentecostal Christian minister, and when life happened to me, I had to take my journey into my own hands. And from there, I gained my bachelor's degree in metaphysical science. I have written a book, and I am a student of spirituality, of mind science, of psychology, and of the self.
You said a lot of heavy topics there. So tell me a little bit about your journey and how you began to, you said, when life happened to you, you had to take life into your own hands. Tell me about that a little bit before we get into all the questions and stuff.
My work is mostly spiritual work. I believe that the self and the spirit are the same in alignment with God. And how that began for me was I started as a devout Christian. I was on the ministry team. I was in the choir. I was on the praise team. I was a Sunday school teacher. And church and religion, it had become so much my identity. I was married at that time. And when my marriage had went downhill, for me, my identity in the church also went downhill. The way I explain it and how I was able to understand it was that they had basically picked his side. And so for me, I'm like, well, my identity is wrapped up in this church and these rules and these people. And I had to learn how to separate church from God, which I had never had to do before. For me, that journey took me away from my religion. I looked into different types of religion and different spiritual practices, which led me to mind science and metaphysics. If I would have just gone down the line of Christianity alone, being scared to search and find who I am and what I believe, I don't think I would be as far as I am right now in my love for myself, my understanding for myself, how I project into the world. I feel like I became a more whole person, a more rounded person, because I was able to search and find different modes of spirituality and understanding for me. And I want to do that for everybody.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. That's really amazing. I think one of the things that you said, I resonated with it a lot. You said that, you gave yourself the permission to look
Hmm.
without anyone else's constant input, without everyone else's life experience who are not you.
Yeah.
You gave yourself
Yeah.
permission to look
Hmm.
and to figure out, does this really work for me? What about this is working and what isn't? It's easy to get caught up, especially in church atmospheres, just blindly doing things that the church or the institution that you're of faith that you're following, however that plays out for you.
Those
You,
habits.
yeah, you just get caught up just doing whatever it is that they want you to do or that they feel is appropriate, even though that may not be resonating with you spiritually. And I think that's
That's right.
dangerous. My first question to you: what would you define as a habit?
So when I was thinking about this question, I kind of went into two directions. So I want to share both.
Okay.
The first one is our subconscious promptings, those reactions that we have that become second nature to us. And then the second direction is our daily doings, the things that we just do every day, like brushing our teeth, driving our car. All of these things are habits. And the reason that I went both ways is because getting down to a habit is basically finding out where our habits root from.
So habits are twofold, and one is your daily doings, and the other is the prompts that you have that are dictated by your
Hmm.
environment, your culture, your upbringing. And these are the
Yes,
things that determine your good or bad habits. Even
yes,
though this is
absolutely.
a living document, your habits are a living document. They're not set in stone.
Yes. Very dynamic, always changing. Yes.
So, how are habits formed then? And why is it important that you understand why those habits are formed?
So I kind of want to take it away from our daily doings. That's just a method to teach, what habitual is. But let's go to what we would quote unquote our good or bad habits, and that they come from our subconscious. And what is our subconscious? Our subconscious is what is driving us. It's what's used for survival, it's used for um, evolution, and it's used for your ego. So your subconscious is telling you stuff from experiences that you've had in the past. Your subconscious doesn't create new experiences. All it does is it tells you this happened before, it might happen again. When you are acting habitually off of your subconscious, it's a cause and effect thing.
We have to
Yeah,
create the consciousness that they're just going to walk into, because some people can't
absolutely.
lead until they see the vision. And
Yeah,
biblically speaking, where there's no vision, the people perish. And I don't think right
absolutely.
now there's enough vision, especially when you think about trends and how, especially with our community, right, with the African American
Yeah,
community, there's a lot of power there. There's a lot of grace. There's a lot of talent, passion, ability, but we also really need to be very, very mindful of what the consciousness we're creating around ourselves, because it plays
I
out
think
in the most vulnerable population, which is going to be the young people who are experiencing all these traumas and depression and all these other things. So this is all just so helpful to me, because this is my journey. This is me figuring it out. This is me putting things out into the world that I believe are important, and working backwards through them to continue to internalize that same amount of growth.
like that's what the Bible was. I reference it a lot because people respect it hands down. Like it's a book that doesn't need a lot of, hype. But the Bible is just that. People who wanted to spread the word or this idea that these wonderful things can happen or have happened. And that's your energy, that's your destiny, that's breaking out of you. So I'm excited for you. It's a beautiful thing.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, another question I have for you: what habits did you have going into your life change? You know, your divorce, your shift in your personal and spiritual beliefs that led to the epiphanies that you had later when you started working backwards through what was happening.
Hmm. Yeah.
What were some of those habits that you had, and how did you overcome some of the things that you then had to change?
At that time, I was really young. I had gotten married at 19, and unfortunately, we were divorced by the time I was 22 or 23. And so at that time, I was a young single mother, divorced, and I'm like all over the place. I had no idea that I would be in that place. You know, like my whole everything had crumbled, my whole identity had crumbled. And one of my worst habits in that time was this habit of blame, trying to find who was responsible for how my life was, where
Mm,
my life was, how I
mm,
ended up here, you know, who is to
yeah,
blame, who is the combination of people to blame. And
yeah,
that became a habit for me, that was a bad habit. And I think people who do endure poverty and trauma and things like that, because you do have that excuse, sometimes you can allow yourself to go into a spiral of excuses. Um, and I think that's where I was. I was not realizing how great my life really was. I was not living in the present. I was living, like we were just talking about, so ready to get to the future that I wasn't doing any of the self work that I needed to do. And so it wasn't coming together for me. And so instead of me looking at me, I tried to blame everyone I could think of. And I'm not saying this um, to be down on myself, because that too is a part of the journey. um, a lot of things, you can't get to the other side without actually going through it. And so I share my stories and my shortcomings because it's inevitable. You have to go through it. And I definitely did. And as like low frequency as it sounds, it's definitely something that I went through where I I wanted to blame my mom. I never seen a relationship work. I definitely
oh,
want to blame my husband. And these things are true, but it gets really sticky when you aren't taking real, control of your own life. You know,
yeah,
it's true and I should
yeah.
say.
In your book you talk about anger, and I can't help but think that anger gets associated with the blaming of others for what's
Yeah,
going on with you. You can't help but be
yeah,
upset with whoever it is, whatever entities are you're assigning the blame to, which becomes another
yeah,
layer of misdirection away from the actual reason you're going through what you're going through. So that goes
yeah,
back to that spiral of excuses that you said.
yeah.
That's a really great. I'm going to quote that. So what was your process in getting through that anger, getting through the spiral of excuses, processing what was going on?
I had to be real honest with myself. I wasn't. I wasn't being 100% honest with myself about anything. And I find that people have the hardest time with that. It's easy to tell your sister, oh, you in a raggedy relationship, you chose him, you need to do better. But it's so hard to tell yourself in the mirror, you in a raggedy relationship, you chose him, you need to do better. Or, or tell your cousin you eat too much, you need to push away from the table. Instead of telling your own self you are choosing bad eating habits, you need to push away from the table. And so I had to do that. I had to be honest with myself. And it sucked. Really, there's no one to blame. I made choices. I made choices not to choose. When I chose that I wanted to just put my hands up, those were my choices as well. And when you take your life into your own hands and you realize that your choices are cause and effect choices, it makes you slow yourself down. It makes you take a little more stock into what you're choosing, how you're thinking, what you're manifesting for yourself on a daily basis. And so for me, I just had to be honest with myself that if I wanted to change where I was, I needed to realize I'm the one who put me there.
If you want to change who you are, you have to realize that you're the one who put you there. I agree with that. But I'm also thinking, so how does your environment play into those realities? Because we all grew up with habits and things that we really didn't, we just developed because we were young, and this is what my family does. This is what we do. This is how we process emotions. This is how we deal with conflict. This is how we eat. This is how we live. This is the age everyone is when they get married. This is how many kids everyone
Right.
has. Like, so how do
Yeah.
you reckon all of these things that are not, they're not individually based on your own inclinations. They're just environmentally appropriate actions. How do you
Right.
establish or even determine whether, which is which? Am I blaming everybody else, or am I just acting this way because this is what I know? Because this is what I know, what I grew up doing.
Yeah. So it has to be a little bit of both. It's to me, it's all about understanding. So it's kind of like when white people say all lives matter and the Black Lives Matter thing. It can be both. So for me, I had a very poor upbringing. And so a lot of things that I did subconsciously and habitually were due to me not having a lot. And I think that for Black people, and what I really want to teach to so many people is just because you haven't seen it, your idea of it is enough. So, for example, I grew up, me and my siblings, we didn't have a lot. Um, School time, we wore the same clothes, we didn't have a lot of shoes and all of that. But I decided that I wanted my children to have more. I didn't know how that was going to work. Like you had mentioned, like my mom, I dropped out of college at 19. Like my mom, I had a baby at 20. And so, yes, I all of those things were true for me, but I decided that just because I didn't see it in my own family, that you could be successful, that you can, be a technical support worker or a software analyst, just because I didn't see that was no excuse for me to not reach for it, even if most of the days I was making it up. But I used that as my stepping stool or as my source to say, okay, I've seen this, I want something different. And it's just basically you allowing yourself to see and trust the inner promptings and vibes that come from within you. Because I do believe that we all have them.
But is it in the Bible?
Right. And that's why we gotta come and talk to me and get you some spiritual. A lot of times when I'm like just at my wit's end, I really just center myself, and it really just works together for me, whether in a YouTube video, a friendly phone call, but knowing God for yourself and being able to just connect with God without any outside anything else is just a jewel. And it's like a great tool to have.
That's incredible. You said it's a really scary thing for everyone to be seeking validation from someone else or from a
Hmm.
text that is important, depending on your faith, but that is
Hmm.
also very much based on your own relationship with God in order to interpret. So,
Yeah.
in my upbringing, you had preachers and pastors, but you were not supposed to question them about anything. And even
Yeah.
if you did, not that it wasn't like allowed, you were allowed to go and get answers,
Yeah.
whatever. But I feel like it was low key, you were marked with a
Full
red
time.
flag.
Yeah.
You're low key a problem child now because you didn't walked
Why
up to
you need
this
to know?
man. Exactly. You have a
Mhm.
non-submissive spirit. We're gonna have to pray for that spirit you have.
Yeah.
You
That's
know.
the devil working. That's
Uh-huh. Also think that every person has a mission, a purpose. And
hmm
sometimes, just like what you said, it is absolutely out of the realm that anybody else has seen.
But what happens at churches, there's this one size fits all religion model
Mhm.
where everybody um, everybody should shout when certain preachers say certain words, and if you didn't shout, then I don't know if you're holy enough. And everybody
Ooh.
should fast on the first of the year, but if you don't fast the way I fast, then you're just not holy enough for me. And it makes people think if I'm not religioning like them, then
Ooh.
I'm wrong.
Right.
But no one has the courage to say, I'm going to stop even dealing with this idea that there is a certain way to be. And I relate that to your ideas, things that God puts into your heart and your spirit to do, to have, and to be. It may be something that there is no blueprint for because you are the blueprint. It's
Ugh.
you,
Ugh.
you know. And so when you think like that, you trust God, you trust yourself, you trust your vision because that is God. Your vision, everything is God. And once you trust it and you align yourself in that direction, you no longer need that validation, or you no longer need these ideas that
Mm.
you need this step, or this person does this for you and that's how you get to this next step. But that's not how it works. You are the creation. It's you. It's you, all of it. So yeah.
Wow. Ooh, you talking that talk right now. People gonna be mad. We listen to anyone who is a believer, who has a special faith that they practice. This is I really hope you're not viewing anything that we're saying as an attack on you,
No,
or
no,
because it's
no,
not. This is all about
no.
evaluating your habits and how different environments, things that you are conscious of or unconscious of, affect your ability and your outcomes. Because there's a lot of folks who
Absolutely.
go to church every
hmm
Sunday and they're very, very stuck. They're
Yeah.
stuck in
I was
habitual
one of those
habits.
people.
Mm,
I was. I was one of those people.
yeah.
hmm
And so, it's about evaluating what's really working and what's not. And that's how we get to
hmm
these, we all say successful, again, we all have these
Yeah.
ideas that we want for ourselves, but it's that working backwards that nobody wants to do because it
No.
challenges your mental and emotional norms, you know.
It challenges your mom. It challenges your grandma. What
Oh,
they said was right. It challenges everything that you knew to be true. That's hard work. That's
yeah,
emotional work,
yeah.
you know.
So how do
Mhm.
you how do you help people get through this in your profession, with your book? How
Mhm.
do you help?
Mhm.
How do you take people on this journey?
So I really believe that our thoughts dictate everything. The Bible says in the beginning, um, God, God, no, in the beginning was the Word, and God was the Word, and the Word was God. Excuse me. Meaning that the word, excuse me, the logos meaning for word is thought. So in the beginning was God's thought, right? And so, right, because think about it. Was there some old guy with a long beard in nothingness creating things. No, it's a thought, which you can go deeper, which we don't have time for. But in quantum physics, we talk about energy and stuff like that. So I teach people about their thoughts. I believe that that's where it begins. Our consciousness, there is no consciousness without the you. So me and you aren't having a conversation without me being conscious that I'm having a conversation with you. It's kind of like if a tree falls in the forest and nobody's there to hear it, did a tree fall? Nobody knows because no one was there to say a tree fell. Okay, so our thoughts are what is the basis of all that we are. And so the importance of going back is to think about why you think the way you think. What we think is manifesting our life as we know it. All of our thoughts are creating. We are creators because we are made in the Creator's image. That's what the Bible says. That's what a lot of scripture texts say. And so if we don't think like we're the creator, then we are letting our ego and our subconscious beliefs run amok in our life. So you have to take on your position as the creator for your life. And I teach people through meditation, because it does take work to go backwards, how to find out what are you thinking, why you think like that. What are better modes of thinking to manifest differently and things like that. So
that is all very, very, very good. Very, very good. I don't know how anybody else feels, but that's really, really good. I think just the concept of working backwards towards the truth rather than, leaping over it, leaping into it like it's behind you. And that is what defines your movement forward. Oof. There's so much there that you said. There's so much. Yeah. Anyway, I can't go into all of it because we'd be here all day. But thank you so much for walking us through that, because your thoughts, your mind is always the key to your spirituality, to your finances, to your relationships, to everything. It's your mind that writes the story.
It is.
So tell us about the book you wrote. Tell us about the book you wrote, and does it help us with this stuff? Now, obviously, I've been reading, your chapters and things. But for anyone who is listening and who is as engaged with this content as I am, I want you to know exactly what's in this book and why you should go get it. Because this kind of information, this kind of content, conversation can really be life-changing, and it can be a breakthrough for you. Because again, it goes back to the mind. And if we're not conscious and taking a creative role in our lives and the way our minds work, how can we overcome habits that are keeping us from getting to that position of self-actualization? So tell us a little bit about your book, and then we have to do a thought exercise before we end.
Okay. So the book is called One Moment, One Day, One Lesson at a Time. And it's subtitled Cultivating Your Personal Spiritual Practice, because that's something that's very important to me. And it's a collection of essays based on topics that I had either a hard time with during my journey, or either things that I just had a good time learning about during my journey. And they're based off of everyday things like life, love, finances, money, things like that. And the book basically is my take on going through my journey regarding these things, such as time, such as happiness, and love and things like that. I talk about the resources that I use. Although these may be new to a lot of people, I think that it's a good way to get my take throughout my journey, using different resources, how it was made clearer to me to understand. I feel like understanding is the biggest thing that we miss out on in religion, and spirituality is the way that you gain understanding. And I was able to gain a lot of understanding using different religious practices. And this book just talks about those different things that I learned, and different techniques to help you through those same processes.
Wow. One day, one moment, one lesson at a time. That is amazing. So they can find this on your website, on Amazon. Where can we find this book?
So you can definitely find my book at my website. My website is andsoitiscounseling.com, all one word. You can definitely find it anywhere where books are sold, Amazon, Google Books, and Apple Books. And you can also find me on Facebook if you want a signed copy. I do mail out signed copies.
All right.
Facebook or Instagram. And so it is with the IV for Instagram.
That's awesome. And you do coaching and things like counseling with people who may be like,
Yes,
I gotta talk to this lady. She is like speaking my language. I need her.
Yeah, so if anybody is interested, I teach meditation. I do one-on-one courses, and I also offer group courses. I know with the pandemic, it's very hard for people to be able to go out and do things. So I go to your home with you and 5 other people so that we're COVID safe. And I go over a guided meditation. I teach people how to meditate. And I can guarantee that you'll have a meditation experience. Definitely.
At this point, I gotta let you go at some point. But before we do that, we have to do a thought exercise. So, Brianna, do you have a thought exercise for us?
I do have a thought exercise, and I want to leave your listeners with something that they can take with them, a skill, something tangible that they can take with them. So I want to teach them a few quick basics on how to meditate. It's going to be really quick, but I want you and your listeners to listen and kind of follow my voice, if you will, and go with me on this guided meditation. We can do 60 seconds. Is that enough time? Is that good? Time
works.
For you?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
I'm going to set a quick timer. And okay. If you will and can, you can close your eyes. But I implore you to throw away all that you can about what you perceive about meditation. If your eyes are open or closed, focus. If your eyes are open, focus on one thing. If your eyes are closed, allow your vision to go either black or white, whatever is easiest for you. While you're focusing, breathe in for a count of 4. 2, 3, 4, and exhale through your nose for a count of 6. 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathe in for a count of 6. 5, 6, and out for a count of 6. 4, 5, 6. On this last breath, you will open your eyes if your eyes are closed, and breathe out for a count of 6. That is the quick and dirty guided meditation. That's a way for you to take one quick minute to slow yourself down, get yourself together, give yourself a moment to clear your thoughts, And, I hope that helped somebody. I hope that was a great experience, and I hope that it can help you going forward.
Absolutely. That's great. That's great. Thank you so much. We got a great podcast episode in and a quick meditation to reset ourselves. That's love. That's love. Thank you so much, Brianna. Really, really
Thank
appreciate you
you so
coming.
much.
Yeah.
I,
Is there any
I
last
appreciate
things?
you for
Go ahead.
having me. I was just going to say, I really appreciate you for having me, for being such an awesome person. I know it's our first time meeting, but the whole experience for me has been really great. And I really appreciate you for being just open and, letting the universe allow us to do great things. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so, so, so much for spending time and giving us some of your expertise.
Thank you.
It's really great and so, so valuable. Everyone, go check out One Day, One Moment, One Lesson at a Time. All of the information on how to contact Brianna, how to get the book will be in the show notes. We thank you so much for being here and for listening. I will talk to you a little bit later. Peace.